Welcome to the 1660s, a decade of opulence and excess where all genders were expected to dress well, when the fashionable suit was as comfortable as it ever and would ever be, with voluminous petticoat breeches and an open coat with room for movement and ventilation. These comfy clothes were fabulous and dripped with lace and bows and 100 yards of ribbon. That's a lot of ribbon. That's 10 times the amount on this costume. That's almost the length of an entire football field on a body that is the height of a hobbit. That's a lot of ribbon. Hi, I'm Jackie with an I, and it is my personal goal to open your world to the black hole of costuming, aka the mid to late 17th century. This is the final video in the 1660s Peacock project, and we're gonna decorate the hell out of this suit. I've linked to all the videos in the description in case you've missed any of them. Let's get to ribboning. Not only is it a lot of ribbon, it's a lot of labor, so let's get started. Because my legs are so short, the ribbons on the petticoat breeches will only be 2-inch loops. For that size, cut 5-inch strips. That's 4 inches for the loops and 1 inch of seam allowance, don't you know? Okay, now some of this bright blue. Same size, different color. I want the ribbons to be removable. The plan is to sew them to the strips of fabric to make them easy to remove or add back on in case I ever find an event to wear this outfit to. Now, the endless task of pinning to the fabric. Since this is poly ribbon, I'm opting to use silk pins to minimize damage, as the blue is particularly prone to getting snagged. Note that I'm overlapping each ribbon slightly to avoid any gaps. And she's still going, just like that little Energizer bunny. Whew! 7 down, 93 to go. A 1660s masculine look is incomplete without a matching cloak. So while we knock out the ribbons, let's start that. You didn't think all we were gonna do in this video was sew ribbons onto some gauchos, did you? Nah. Okay, let's cut out the cloak. Okay, so we did a circular cloak earlier this year, this pretty red riding hood cloak, but that was only a half circle. This is a full circle. So it's pretty similar, but there is one significant difference, and that we're going to be folding it twice instead of once. It's a little bit tricky. I've done it a million times, but I have to look it up every time I do it. Now this is important, so if you have a pattern or something, make sure that your right side is on the inside when you start folding this. All right, first we're gonna fold it selvage to selvage. Velveteen is so sticky and annoying, that took me almost 10 minutes. Okay, so now we have folded selvage to selvage. Now we are going to fold along the selvage, i.e. in the opposite direction, perpendicular to our other fold. I'm not gonna end up using all of this fabric, so I'm gonna go ahead and fold it just a little bit longer than I need. So that's 24. I've got 29 and a half, so let's do 31. That'll give me a little bit of wiggle room. Like that. If you're using fabric that doesn't stick to itself, this pinning nonsense is probably unnecessary. Finally, the struggle is over. Here's the selvage. Here's the fold we just made. You want to cut your circle from this opposite corner over both folds. I got frustrated at this point and had to take a break, but now we're fresh, so let's do the maths. Oh joy. First, we'll start by marking the neckline. I'm shooting for an 18-inch neck circumference, so my radius is 2.86 inches. For the sake of simplicity, let's make it 2 7/8 of an inch. Mark from the corner out all the way around. Next, mark from your neckline down how long you want your cloak plus seam allowances. I'm opting for 26 inches because that's how long I can get without piecing. The extant cape is 29, but hey, I'm probably shorter than the original wearer, so there you go. Ha 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 ha! Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Woo! It It's dye day, my favorite day. I knew from the beginning I wanted to get some cotton velveteen and dye it a multitude of colors to have this beautiful, colorful cloak. I ended up getting cotton velveteen from Fabric Wholesale Direct. My longtime viewers will remember this cotton velveteen as the notorious 5% stretch velveteen that I used to make my 1890s coat. I'm not so worried about the stretch in this project because it's a cloak. I mean, it's got like 3 seams. I don't have to worry about it too much. But because it has 5% spandex in it, it's not gonna take the dye quite as well as a straight velveteen does. The plan is to use 3 different colors of dye: azure blue, grape, and new emerald green with just a touch of lemon yellow because Dharma's fiber reactive. Oh, that's so hard to say. Because Dharma's fiber reactive. Whew! Dharma's fiber reactive greens tend to skew very blue, so I want to add a little bit of yellow so it gets that nice vibrant emerald green that I got on my 1880s corset. Instead of tub dyeing like I've done on this channel a million times, we're actually going to tie dye without the ties. Let's go and do the majority of the work before we start dyeing all of the prep. 17% chance of rain today. That's it. I just stepped outside to start this project. Thunder. So I guess we're gonna go work on something else and hopefully this passes fast. I shouldn't complain about the rain, but why couldn't it have waited another half an hour? Why?
5 minutes later. A few minutes later.
That's hail, friends. That is hail flying into my patio. I have never seen that before, and I have lived in this apartment for 11 years. Holy crap. I can't get it to focus, but can you see the hail on the top of the carports? Whoa! Also very glad I have a covered parking space. An hour and a half later, it's much cooler outside and we can finally get started. Unlike tub dyeing, when you tie dye, you soak the fabric in a solution of soda ash and water before you dye. This velveteen sucked up almost all of the water, even though technically I batched up enough for twice its weight. This will need to sit for 15 minutes. While it sits, let's prep the first color. The amount of water and dye you use is based on the weight of your fabric, the amount of colors, and the specific dye. Urea is added to the water first to help dissolve all of the dye, since tie-dyeing requires much more dye than a standard immersion method and uses much less water. Then we measure out the dye. Not sure why I opted to start with the blue in the center, but there was a reason behind it. Now for the fun part. Squirt! Note that I only have 1 squirt bottle, so I have to do this 1 color at a time. The dye comes out very dark, but do not fear. The chemistry will prevail. This is a little bit harder when it's not tied into a nice little tie-dye package, but I want there to be a lot of bleeding at the edges, so it's all good. Next stop, the emerald train. And finally, the purple. Next, you want to put it in a plastic garbage bag or something similar so it can't dry out during the curing process. Don't worry about the dye on my patio. Fiber reactive dye is not permanent on cement. Let it cure for 24 hours and then rinse, rinse, rinse until your water runs clean. You know what? Sometimes you go through a heck of a lot of effort. And in the long run, when everything is said and done, the results just aren't what you wanted or expected. And sometimes you go through all of this extra effort and the results are even better than what you expected. It looks so good. The colors are so vibrant. They're not picking up well on camera. There we go. Yeah. All right, so let's get to assembly. I picked a spot on the cloak where I liked the dye grade the best and marked it for the center front. Note that a lot of the masculine cloaks from this period had collars attached, but the one in the cut of men's clothes that I'm using as a reference does not. And so because of that, and because I'd have to draft it and fit it and then dye it the exact color of the top of the cloak, I've opted to not have a collar on this. Instead, we're going to roll under and hem down the top, nice and simple. Added bonus, less bulk under the Lacy collar, but more about that later. The hem is going to get the same treatment. And surprise! So is the center front opening. How's that for quick and easy? Meanwhile, Mr. Bingley, how do you like my ribbons for your ball? He's a lot of ribbons. Ah! Okay, here's where we're at so far with the ribbons. We've got 2 layers of 2-inch ribbon loops to go on the bottoms of the breeches. 1 set of 2-inch ribbon loops to go on the bottom of the coat. And we've got 2 sets of 5.5-inch loops that are 10 inches wide that are gonna go up on top of the petticoat breeches because I'm commonly seeing them kind of trellised up the side. I've kind of lost track how much ribbon I've used, but I've got about this much left, and that was kind of the only places I was planning on putting them. So I was doing some more research last night, and one of the things that was quite common was what I'm calling a rooster tail erupting from one side of the shoulder. It tends to be the dominant side. I am determined to use every single inch of this thing. Another thing I saw was an armband like the garters that I made in the shirt video, so I think that'll be my next step after the rooster tail. Welcome to the black hole of costuming, where we have absolutely no guidelines for anything and just have to wing it. These ribbons are 7 inches long, and I first tried a triple layer of 5, 3, and 1, but it just wasn't floofy enough. So I doubled the amount of ribbons, naturally. The ribbons are pretty slippery, so you may want to put a stitch or 2 between each layer. If you're enjoying this loopy project, get it, ribbon loops, then please consider popping into the comments to say hello or giving this video a thumbs up. It really helps get this video out to people like you who want to learn more about this fabulous era. And thank you to all of my Ko-fi supporters who helped raise funds for this project. I would not have been able to do this without you. I've linked to my page below if you would like to help this channel out financially. I've got all of my combined ribbon pieces pinned onto the outfit, and I've got just under 5 yards left to figure out what to do with. 1 yard of the blue and not quite 4 yards of the teal. 2 of the teal yards we're gonna use as a closure for the cloak, so I cut that off. Been racking my brain trying to figure out what I want to do with this stuff. So I've decided that the blue is going to be turned into little wrist bows, and then with the teal we're gonna use that to tie the shoes. With everything pinned the other day, I looked at it and decided it really needed something else. I was going to hand embroider some ribbon using the lighter blue, but I couldn't get it to look good. So in the end, I bought some more of this gold lace. My loyal viewers will recognize this as the same lace I used on the unicorn. I bedazzled some rhinestones onto it. Woo! In the end, it was only like $9 more, and it did everything for this coat. It's amazing how much a little bit of trim can bring everything together. So let's get to hot fixing, let's get to basting, and then we can finally get these ribbons attached. Obligatory sparkle shot for those who have been thirsty for it. And the curse of the costumer. Every time you try to hand sew on camera, the thread absolutely loses its mind and refuses to behave. Let's move on. Ooh, so pretty and sparkly. The camera never does rhinestones justice. Historically, this line of ribbons I'm attaching to the coat would go along the waistband of the breeches instead, as a callback to the points or ties that used to keep these suits together. That's where the ribbon craze originated. My breeches are very heavy and I don't want them to fall down. And the waistband is basically at the widest part of my torso. So for both practicality and vanity, they're going on the coat. Okay, if that's not a satisfying shot, I don't know what is. That's like 80 yards of ribbon right there. And to break up the monotonous hand stitching, let's do some painting. I had a hard time deciding how I wanted to do feathers in the cloak and tried various prototypes before deciding on this method. I wish I had some Lumiere paint in teal and purple blue, but I don't, so we'll just use my fine art paint instead. I painted 9 feather eyes in total. Originally, I only wanted to do 7 because time, but this cloak is huge, so 9 it is, and I could have done 11. Alrighty, my friends, we have very little to do, and yet we have so much left to do. I have 1 week to get everything finished, and full disclosure, I've been letting my hair grow long specifically for this costume, so I didn't have to buy a wig or anything because my hair is basically the hair. But we are now into June and it is very hot, so the sooner I get this done, the sooner I can chop my hair off. So the goal today is to accomplish every single thing I can do on the machine. Let's see if we can get it done. Time to bind the top edge of the trellis ribbons for the breeches. That looks so much neater. What do you think? The arm ribbons will get the same treatment, except a little hidden elastic in the binding so I can get them on myself without help. If you've ever had to tie something on your own arm, you know why. As always, you want to safety pin the elastic before sewing, and make sure you pin the elastic up out of the way. Okay, so that's basically everything we can do on the machine except the collar. I'm gonna hold off on the collar for just a couple of days because I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna do it yet. So let's go get some hand stitching done. Now it's time to embroider the eyes onto the cloak. First in one color, then another, and another 9 times. Why do I do this myself? Oh, that's why. Pretty. Hi, there's one thing left to do. The lace collar. After all, 100 yards of ribbon is not enough frills for this outfit. Traditionally, these collars would have been made from the finest lace you could afford, but I had the exact opposite and it's flimsy AF, so I decided to line it with a little voile. While the neckband and finishing will need to be done by hand, we'll opt to sew the long seams on the machine for time. Probably should have done French seams, but those are pure evil. The yabos are once more a problem. No surprise there. I look like a boxer who somebody just threw a Lacy sweat towel over or something. But instead of agonizing over it and trying to figure out a way to get this to fit over my large bust, I'm gonna take the KISS method and channel the second half of the decade when they were moving from the lace collars to the cravats. In fact, we're gonna rip off our buddy Louis over here. Forgo the neckband completely. And instead of these being little wrist bows, they're going to be my cravat. It's June in Texas. Let's get sweaty. I can't believe it's done. This was such a fun project, even if it took me way longer than I anticipated. Between the lack of information and trying to fit a very straight masculine coat onto a very curvy feminine body, this was one of the most difficult things I've ever made. There were a lot of mistakes, some of which I'm going to fix and some of which I really don't care about. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, this was a sartorial experiment instead of a costume that I actually intend to wear anywhere. And frankly, I've learned a lot. Let me know in the comments what your favorite piece of this costume was. Mine is the cloak, hands down. Also, hey, did you know I've got a ton of 17th century content on this channel? I've put them all in a playlist and you should totally check it out if you want more fun 17th century content. That's about it for me. Thanks for watching. I love y'all, and I'll catch you in my next video.